Hi. I've been meaning to communicate certain pieces of information that had been making rounds in my head for a while now. Excuse me. But all these pieces of information, although interesting, beneficial, seemed a little disjointed at times in my head. So I was just waiting for some kind of an adhesive in form of a logic which could bind all these information together in form of a sequence that makes sense. Although what I present to you may not be making a perfect sense immediately, but when you think about it, if you let it percolate, it would make a lot of sense, and I hope you benefit from it. Uh, I remember something that I must share with you while I was doing my doctorate. Um, I met a professor who said that he addressed all those students who were taking a little longer in completing their thesis. He said that don't wait to make your thesis a perfect piece. Because if you keep on waiting and giving it finishing touches, you can do it for your entire lifetime and still a perfect piece would not be created. You can always present something to the world and add adjoinders later on, uh, because science is all about giving adjoinders and upgrading the information that you already possess. So without further ado, let's talk about what I had in mind. Uh, we've all studied quantum physics and organic chemistry, and it's roughly what I'm going to tell you roughly is based on that. Suppose this is a particle, and there's so many infinite number of factors that are affecting it: the force, the mass, the acceleration, the gravity, and so many of them. And we studied in our middle school about the laws of physics and the Newton's famous 3 laws of motion. That's just a bit of it. Similarly, by the token of the in the same light, I should say, if if and when a child or any living organism, any living entity takes birth, comes into life, there's so many other factors than just his environment, parents, weather, climate, culture. There are certain big entities, huge entities in the universe that are much bigger in terms of their physical reality, that cast a certain that cast a certain influence, impact on that living entity. These are the planets. Many of them are much bigger than Earth. We have Sun, we have Venus, we have Mercury, we have Jupiter, Uranus, Saturn, of course. Who can forget Saturn? And beyond these planets, there are certain constellations that we know as nakshatra in Hindi. These are the clusters of stars that make a certain geometrical pattern in the sky through which light from far and beyond in the universe comes through. So a certain pattern of light comes through these constellations, and this pattern, which in Hindi or Sanskrit is known as mandal, this mandal or the pattern of light further gets let's say subdivided depending on the planets that are in front of that constellation, and finally when this light reaches us, it affects us. And it is to be noted that these are not small little entities, these are huge entities, and the photons have wave particle quality, and they are the smallest unit of light. These photons that affect us, they affect us substantially. So depending on the time that a child is born, the moon at that particular time, when it faces a certain constellation that would decide the transit that you are born in. And suppose you're born in the constellation of Sagittarius, it would have it would be ruled by certain planets. That particular constellation would be ruled, or let's say inhabited by certain planets. And if you're when you're born into it, let's say you are here, and then the cosmic clock begins, and you cover all transits in one stage of life, one after the other. This is how the circle goes. You're born here, and then the clock starts clicking, and you start going through all patterns of life, each transit teaching you certain life lessons. Sometimes a living entity may end here, for example. It would have to cover that much time, that much portion in the next life. But then this particular portion is theological, you may or may not believe, but then this is absolutely making sense. The geometrical patterns which changes the amount of light that touches you. Each entity on earth would have different coordinate and would be affected by these mandal or constellation light in a different way. So this is one piece of information, and the second piece of information is something that we are all aware of, that is the solar system. Solar system is something that I'm talking about because it is the closest that affect us. Our immediate family affect us, otherwise we all know Vasudev Kutumbakam, the whole earth is my house and everyone living on it is my family. But the immediate family affects and shapes us the most. Similarly, our house is our immediate house, our immediate roof is the solar system. We are here, Earth. You know that each planet, it doesn't have light of its own. Sun sends light on it, and only a few amount, not, I shouldn't be using the word, a little amount of it is absorbed by these planets, and the rest is reflected back everywhere. We are here, and each planet is reflecting light after absorbing a little bit into the universe, and some of this light reaches us by all these planets. So let's suppose we are going through a transit of Jupiter. Here we are again. Suppose the native who was born at this particular time has now reached this part of his life, this phase of his life. So that portal that absorbs Jupiter's light the most has opened. The portal that allows us to be most receptive to Jupiter's light has opened for the native in question. This is Jupiter. So the light that hits us, the light that would hit that particular individual would affect our bodies in a way that I could explain furthermore with the help of one rough sketching. This is the point, this is the chakra, the yellow one, that receives the frequencies that are meant to come from Jupiter. Each chakra, or you call it a cluster of nerves, and we can feel it. It's not a theological concept, it is not an imaginary religious concept. These are the cluster of nerves. If people who study the spinal cord would be well versed with the different junctions of nerves in our body. The first junction, the tailbone, that starts with where you have your root chakra, then the sacral, then the Manipur, or the not the Manipur, Manipur is this, then the solar plexus, the heart chakra, the throat, the head, and of course in the crown chakra. So each of these nerves are meant to receive certain frequencies of light or waves or vibration. You know that a vibration can also be converted into light. That light can be converted into sound, and that sound can be converted into color. So all these sense organs are not doing some completely different jobs. There are electromagnetic waves around us. It's just that the eyes are custom made to convert those waves into colors. The ears are custom made to convert those magnetic waves into sound. And the body chakra, as well as the molecules in the skin, the hair, they are meant to cover those frequencies into sensation. So each of these clusters are meant to, they are meant to, they are through the journey of evolution, they're meant to receive these frequencies. Like I have made a note of it, and all these are multiple of 8, because as most of us know by now, and I had spoken about it in my last video as well, that the heartbeat or the pulse of Earth is 8. So all the multiples of 8 would be the number, would be the frequencies that would be most easily deciphered by the clusters of nerves. And if it is getting too complicated, let's leave it at that. So this chakra, which is the root chakra, excuse me, okay, I'm sorry about that. So these chakras are meant to receive certain frequencies. For example, the root chakra, 432 frequency. It is 430 or 400. Keep it. We can never be too sure about the exact number of the frequency, but the lowest frequency of wave is deciphered by the root chakra, and then it moves. It ascends. The sacral chakra around 480 to 500, and then this the solar plexus is meant to receive and decipher and make sense of the frequency of the magnitude of around 550 to 500 to 550, until we reach the crown chakra, which can make sense, just like a transducer does, of frequency as high as 700 something. The lowest frequency is received and understood by the root chakra. What is frequency? Frequency would be the number of crest and trough, and it would be lowest when the amount of photon is least energized. Why is a photon least energized? It is least energized when it does not hit a color. And you know that Saturn is ashened in color. It is dark. It is just like ash. So when the sun's rays would fall on Saturn, which has a ring, and would be reflected back, suppose here, the frequency would be so less that the root chakra would be not functioning properly. And this is the root chakra that is responsible for giving instructions to the brain to feel secure, safe. So when this chakra is not aligned, and it happens when you say that you are going through the Saturn transit, why do people say that they get suddenly depressed or out of sorts, anxious, insecure during the Saturn transit? Because they are not getting enough light from the Saturn to activate their root chakra, as a result of which you feel insecure, depressed all the time. And it's only because that the root chakra is not functioning properly, that your hormone secretion through the pituitary gland, which is supposed to make you feel secure, melatonin, dopamine, all these are not active. And this is how you know that if people who have studied organic chemistry in their 11th and 12th, they would know that all these hormones are nothing but, as we know, hormones are amino acids. Amino acids would mean they have nitrogen as an extra element, other than the usual carbon, oxygen and hydrogen, which is basically the formula for life. Sugar, right? The living sugar, the organic sugar. Other than that, it has nitrogen, and nitrogen is one element that makes proteins, or its smallest units, that is amino acids, stretchable. It does not melt. It doesn't segregate like perhaps the granules of sugar. It stretches. Therefore, when your proteins are good, your hair are good, because they don't break. And one more element which it has is R, which is ether. So ether is, let's say, like alcohol, and therefore one that really doesn't need to consume extra alcohol, because our body itself has enough alcohol to keep us a little drugged all the time. Drugs that are injected through these hormones like serotonin, I think it is melanin. I'm not sure about that particular hormone, or dopamine. It keeps us doped. So when we are not doped, because the Saturn transit is going on, the native is going through the Saturn transit, is not receiving enough photons from the universe to energize to energize the dopamine secretion, he or she starts seeing things without that drugs, which makes things way too real for a human mind to accept. Now I was talking about the accidental healing. You know that India is a place where after a few days of Diwali, the festival, marriages begin, and you keep hearing these big loud sounds of songs all around us. I personally experienced a sensation of healing and release of anxiety when there was a wedding nearby which stretched on to almost a week, and there were sounds of music all around me. So prior to that particular week, the anxiety level was palpable. However, all the music that you hear, just don't confine yourself to some pranic healing music. All the music bits that you hear, there are certain sounds that must have affected these chakras. And by the end of the day each week, I used to feel much less anxious. So all I'm trying to tell you is, you may not know what frequency of sound is there in your favorite song, but whenever you're down and out, whenever you're feeling a little out of sorts, turn on that music. Try to find which music would relieve you the most, which would give you the kind of zing that you require, and you would feel that, and that's a certainty, that's 100% surety. During the time of dusk, when the sun goes down, the level of photons around us they go down too. Therefore, our ancestors had said that do try to listen to certain music, healing music, not the cacophony and the noises and maddening sounds. There are symmetrical music. There is a symmetry in the sound notes. And then even if it has a thumping sound, if you are used to hearing all these frequencies, you would know that this one has the maximum, the root chakra, which is your survival chakra. Feeling of security, safety, survival comes to that. It is closest to earth. It has a bass like a thump, and this one has a little less bass but more reach. And by the time you come here, this has very little bass but the widest reach. I'll end this video by saying, set your life to music. You will feel that the pent-up anxiety, it just melts away, evaporates, call it what you may, and it will be worth your time. Give it a try. Thank you. Bye.